Imagine turning 72, and realizing the children you raised have left you for their greed. Today, as I, Maribel Vega, sat in the silence of my once lively home, I felt the weight of years pressing down on my shoulders, the walls echoing only my own sighs. For it was my birthday, yet no one came to wish me, no flowers, no calls, no laughter, only the cruel emptiness left behind by the children I had raised with endless love, Novalee and Rylen, who, after my beloved husband passed away, had turned their eyes toward my property and left me here alone. A shadow of the woman who had once nurtured them through scraped knees, school projects, and midnight tears, and as I stirred my tea and gazed out the window at a world that seemed to have forgotten me, I remembered the nights my husband's voice had filled this house with warmth and security. The days we dreamed together of a family that would care for each other, and yet now, at 72, I sat with only memories, the photographs on the mantel silently accusing, the letters from lawyers and banks proving their selfishness, my heart aching. As I recalled how Novalee and Rylen had promised to visit, to celebrate with me, to honor the woman who had given them life, only to vanish with excuses and greed in their eyes, and still, even in this isolation, I tried to hold on to dignity, remembering the life I had lived, the love I had given, and whispering to the empty room that I was still here, still alive, still worthy of respect and care, and as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the floor, I felt a quiet determination stirring within me, that this birthday, though lonely and painful, would not break me completely, for I had survived loss, betrayal, and heartbreak before, and I would survive this too, and yet, little did I know, the days to come would bring encounters and revelations that would force Novalee and Rylen to confront their cruelty. Secrets that would either shatter their comfortable lives or finally awaken the remorse they had buried deep inside, and I waited, quietly, patiently, because even in their absence, I knew truth had a way of finding its way home. The people you raised with love can sometimes become strangers who betray you for greed. I, Maribel Vega, have lived 72 years, and in all my days, I never imagined that the children I had nurtured with tireless devotion, Novalee and Rylen, would one day look at me not as a mother, but as an obstacle, a burden, someone to be moved aside so they could claim what they thought was rightfully theirs. And it all began quietly, with small manipulations, subtle suggestions that I was too old to manage the house, that the bills and the chores were too much, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, they planted the seed of doubt in my own mind, suggesting that I should consider a smaller place, more suitable for your age, while behind closed doors, they met with lawyers and appraisers, plotting to take control of the home my husband and I had built with love and sweat. And I remember the day I found the first letter from a law firm. Cold, formal, offering me a settlement if I agreed to sign over my property, and my heart sank, not because of the loss of material wealth, but because of the realization that the children I had given life to were willing to abandon me, willing to erase my presence for their own gain, and I sat in that quiet room, trembling, staring at the walls that once held our laughter, remembering how I had held Novalee when she scraped her knee on the sidewalk, how I had fed Rylen when he refused to eat his vegetables, how I had stayed up through nights when their tears or fevers would not let me sleep, and now, all that care, all that love, meant nothing, replaced by greed and cold ambition, and I felt a loneliness deeper than any I had known, because love, unconditional love, had been repaid with betrayal, and as I tried to call them, my voice shaking, my hands weak, their phones went unanswered, their excuses rehearsed and hollow, and I realized they had perfected a mask of filial duty while quietly carving out a life for themselves from the ruins of mine. And yet, despite the anger, despite the heartbreak, I reminded myself that I was 72, that I had endured wars, losses, and heartbreaks before, and that while they sought to diminish me, they could not destroy the spirit, the wisdom, the resilience I had built over decades. And I sat alone, clutching a photograph of my late husband, whispering to him, my voice raw with sorrow, that even in the face of such betrayal, I would not bow, I would not let their greed define the remainder of my life. And as night fell, the darkness outside mirroring the weight inside, I felt a spark of determination. One day, Novalee and Rylen would have to face the truth of what they had done, and I, Maribel Vega, though lonely, though wounded, would be here, waiting, stronger than they could ever imagine, and perhaps, just perhaps, they would learn too late that a mother's love is priceless and cannot be bought, stolen, or replaced, no matter how clever their schemes. Imagine blowing out your birthday candles, and no one is there to see you. That day, as I, Maribel Vega, sat in the quiet of my living room, the clock ticking loudly in the empty house, I could feel the weight of 72 years pressing on my frail shoulders, my hands trembling as I poured myself a cup of tea. For it was my birthday, a day that once had meant laughter, celebration, and warmth, yet now was only shadows and echoes. The children I had loved, Novalee and Rylen, absent as they schemed in boardrooms and lawyers' offices, thinking of properties, not the mother who had raised them. And as I gazed at the cake I had baked myself, the small, lonely thing with a single candle, I thought of all the birthdays past, the gifts, the hugs, the joy I had felt when they were children, and how all that love had been repaid with silence, abandonment, and betrayal. And tears blurred my vision as I whispered into the empty room, telling the walls stories of my life, of my husband who had passed and left me with memories and now loneliness, of the times I had cared for them when they were sick, guided them through mistakes, comforted their heartbreaks. And now, there was no comfort for me, no warmth. Only the harsh truth that life could be cruel even to those who had given their hearts fully. Yet even in that despair, a quiet ember of strength stirred within me, reminding me that I had survived loss before, that though my body ached and my heart was heavy, my spirit could not be taken from me. And so I blew out the candle on my cake, not with hope that they would return, but with a silent promise to myself that I would endure, that I would find dignity in my solitude, and perhaps, in time, justice or reckoning would find its way to Novalee and Rylen. For even in betrayal, a mother's love remains unbroken. And as I closed my eyes, listening to the wind whisper through the trees outside, I knew that the days ahead would bring challenges, revelations, and a strength I had yet to fully embrace. For sometimes, it is in the deepest loneliness that we discover who we truly are. Sometimes, the truth arrives when you least expect it. And it cuts deeper than betrayal. I, Maribel Vega, had long accepted that my 72 years would pass in quiet solitude, yet that afternoon, as the doorbell rang and the familiar faces of Novalee and Rylen appeared, dressed in false smiles and carrying the arrogance of entitlement, I felt a surge of anger and sorrow, for these were the children I had nurtured, taught, and loved with every ounce of my being, and now they stood before me as strangers seeking control of what I had built. Their words coated in manipulation and excuses, claiming concern for my well-being, suggesting that I might be happier elsewhere, that I needed to let go of the house. All the while their eyes darted to the corners of the room, measuring, calculating, confirming the property that had once been ours together. And I listened quietly, my hands folded in my lap, my heart heavy but my mind sharp, seeing through their lies and entitlement, and I reminded them, my voice steady despite the tears that threatened, that 72 years of life, of raising them, of loving them unconditionally, was not to be brushed aside for greed or convenience. And I spoke of the nights I cared for them when they were sick, the days I taught them kindness, the moments I sacrificed my own comfort to nurture theirs. And as I spoke, a silence fell upon the room, their smiles faltering, their excuses stammering, as if for the first time they truly saw the weight of their actions reflected in my weary, yet unbroken, eyes, and I realized then that strength does not always roar. Sometimes, it is quiet, steady, immovable, and in that stillness, I reclaimed the dignity and authority they thought they could strip from me. And I told them firmly that the house, the memories, and the legacy of love were mine to honor, mine to protect, and they could no longer manipulate or threaten me with legal games or emotional blackmail. And though anger and sorrow still simmered within me, I also felt a strange relief, for the confrontation, though painful, revealed that they were not beyond remorse, and that perhaps, just perhaps, the seeds of their conscience might awaken too late, and I, Maribel Vega, though 72 and weathered by years of betrayal and grief, had discovered that courage does not fade with age, and that even alone, even abandoned, one could stand tall, command respect, and survive the cruelty of those who once called you mother. They thought they could break me, but I am stronger than their greed. At 72, I, Maribel Vega, sat in my quiet home, the sun casting warm light across the walls filled with memories, feeling a peace that no betrayal could steal. For the confrontation with Novalee and Rylen had revealed their true intentions. And though their faces still carried guilt and defiance, I knew that I had reclaimed not just my home, but my dignity, my strength, and my right to live fully despite their selfishness. And as I walked slowly through the rooms, touching the photographs of my late husband, remembering our laughter and love, I realized that life had not ended in sorrow, but had given me a lesson that could never be taken away, that even in loneliness, a heart filled with love and courage can rise above betrayal. And I felt tears of relief and gratitude for the decades I had survived, for the resilience that comes only from enduring loss, heartbreak, and deceit, and I smiled softly, whispering to myself that birthdays, even lonely ones, could mark not just sorrow but awakening, a reminder that no matter how cruel the world may seem, one's spirit can remain unbroken. And I prepared a simple meal, lit a candle, and for the first time in years, I celebrated quietly, fully, for myself, knowing that the love I had given and the strength I had cultivated were mine alone. And as I spoke aloud to the empty room, I said, to anyone watching this story, remember that you are stronger than those who try to diminish you. And even when abandoned, your heart can hold peace, love, and courage. And with a gentle smile, I added, if this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe, so that no one feels alone. And may we all remember the power of resilience and love, even in the face of betrayal.